Hi, I'm Todd Sedano, and I'm at PMI Agile 2026 for my talk, AI Augmented Sprint, Agile Isn't Dead. So we're at an interesting point in time. It's possible that this presentation will not age well. Um, and historically, I've preferred well-crafted, human-created images like this one on this page, made by Happy Kiddo to visualize my talking points on each slide. You'll notice that many of my slides are also made by generative AI. Now, I know some of you aren't a fan of that. I'm hoping you are okay and you can, hold your nose a little bit for it. There's a few reasons for this. One is I needed to create an image fast and to do it and to visualize what I wanted to say pretty quick. And generative AI is very good at that. Plus, whenever AI makes a goof in an image, for some reason it just makes me laugh, realizing that it's definitely not perfect and it just sometimes makes really silly mistakes. So let's get to a summary of the talk, the key takeaway. The sprint structure hasn't fundamentally changed since the early days of Scrum, and I'd like to have a quick show of hands of those of you in the audience who are using AI tools in your workflows. All right, thanks. So the promise of this talk is I'm going to do a practical walkthrough of each phase or stage of software development, showing what actually can change with AI. I'll show an example with prompts and, when possible, outputs from those prompts. So without further ado, here's the overview of the entire talk. So that we're right now in the overview, and then in dual track development, there's track one with knowing what it is we want to build. What do we put in the backlog? And then track two, which is how do we take it out of the backlog? How do we go from concept to shipping something? I'll then have some conclusions and some cautions about what can go wrong with all this, and then some wrap-ups at the end. So let me set the stage. I've been using AI for a bit, and it's really been interesting to watch it augment my teams that I work with and how I do agile software development. And we're at, as I said earlier, an interesting point in time where there feels like we're at a decision point. And people are making arguments. We should go to the Peak Summit or to the Serene Lakes, and we can't even agree on maybe what the words mean for these things and whether we want one destination or the other. So it's kind of ironic. So some say that the path is clear, we should go this way, and others are saying the path is clear, we should go another way. And one path is basically heading towards vibe coding, where we just let the AI loose and we YOLO it, and it's creating software agents are creating software that's shipped to production without a human being involved or looking at the generating code. And we can do things to make it safe, like have QA agents test things, right, to have review agents review the PRs. But basically, the agent is in the driver's seat. And the other path is AI augmented software, where we use AI as a tool to accelerate us. And all generated AI artifacts are then reviewed by a human in that context. So what kind of changes and what doesn't? So if one thing we're noticing is that the speed of iteration is changing. The volume of options to explore is changing. It's a lower barrier to experimentation. What doesn't change? We still need to have judgment. We need collaboration, trust, and creativity. AI amplifies the core agile values. It doesn't replace them. The team is still the agent of change. Well, let me talk a little bit about myself. So I'm biased. I write software. I'm in this picture from a bit ago. And so I see AI augmented path as very appealing. I can more quickly understand a code base. I can deliver code faster. I can have it reviewed better. And AI can help troubleshoot on-call issues. But I'm still skeptical about shipping vibe-coded products to production. Well, why is that? Well, whenever I ask AI to do something, or I especially tell it not to do something, 1 time out of 10 it ignores me, and it does it anyways. And maybe in time this number will get better. Maybe it'll be 5%, 1%, 0.1%. But sort of the occupational hazard of LLMs that they appear to be super intelligent, and they do a lot of really interesting reasoning. But at the end of the day, these are just guidelines to them. We can tell them not to do something, they'll do it anyways. Yes, and when we put AI on guardrails, it will actually circumvent them, often in disastrous or mysterious ways. So at the end of the day, I'm still on call for what AI produces, so I want to know what it's generating. Okay, so the AI augmented sprint. That is the core of this talk. We're going to walk through each part of a sprint showing specific ways AI tools can add value. Now let's look at the timeline of Agile method books. So we have XP from 1999 and the Scrum book from 2001. In 2010, we have Kanban. And a few years ago, we have Sustainable Dual Track Development, which was a combination of XP, Kanban, Scrum, and user-centered design, all put together in a book with academic research backing all the practices. So I had to pick one of these. I am biasedly picking the most recent one. And so for this talk, I'm going to use that as my baseline. So we'll kind of walk through some of the core concepts and then show how AI can help each phase. So in dual track Agile, as an overview, track one, typically led by product designers, is trying to figure out what it is we want to build using UX principles. And then track two, typically led by developers, is then emptying the backlog. Both these tracks are not waterfalls, they're not sequences, they're not sprints. They're continuous phases that are going on simultaneously at all times. So while part of the team is doing track one, another part of the team is doing track two, which is why the arrows are backwards, trying to show that this is not some kind of sequential flow. And then there's a bunch of other activities that we do as a team. There's boundary spanning activities, which is typically led by product managers, and then project management skills and techniques that are led by the whole team. Okay, so we've just finished the overview. Let's move into track one. So in track one, there's two set of practices, one called sense making and one called design thinking. And inside sense making, we do things like stakeholder mapping, interviewing, persona modeling, modeling success, all that fueling an affinity map. And then the affinity map then fuels sketching, validating features, usability testing, writing user stories. All right, so I'm going to go into both these things with a big oversimplification. So what show follows is a common path, but a product designer has a lot of skills in their toolbox, and they might change this up based on the situation and what's going on at the time. So in sense making, typically it kind of looks like this. You do stakeholder mapping, that fuels into interviewing, then persona modeling, and then affinity maps. At any point in time, you might skip a stage or go back a stage or repeat the whole process when we learn new information. And in design thinking, we sketch items, we create mock-ups, we validate those features with users, we do usability testing, and then we write stories. So let's look at some places where UI can be really interesting. So in UXR, that's the research and the mock-ups and the prototypes, we can leverage AI for developing mocks. We can leverage AI for writing open-ended questions for interview guides. And we still need to identify and challenge our assumptions and hypotheses when we put AI into a questioning mode that can help with us. And brainstorming mode can help us actually understand how we want to start a project. All right, let's show example prompt. Hey, Claude, take our Slack conversation here in this thread and create a functioning prototype. Ask me clarifying questions if you have any. Use the company style guide standards, or maybe use simple pencil wireframes to show us that it is in a prototype. And then a few minutes later, out comes our prototype. And in one case, we were talking about an inbox where agents are making, say, tasks that are needed to get to a Agile 2026 conference. And if we just go through here and click the run agent, maybe Claude is sticking in tasks in our inbox, and then we might want to review them. So here you see it's booking a flight to Washington, D.C., it's reserving some hotels, arranging transportation, booking a dinner. And if we click on any of these things, we then can see how we went from no proposal to a proposal, and we can accept or reject these. So this is just Claude looking at a conversation several engineers and product managers had in Slack and saying, oh, I think I can make a prototype for this. And so we go very quickly from talking about an idea to actually seeing what it might look like. Another place people have been playing around with AI is in story writing. Now, I'm not talking about this kind of story writing where we're making a novel, but making tickets in Jira or stories in a tracker. We gotta be careful when we do this though, because AI can make some lovely stories that have a lot of slop in them, story slop. So just because it made a lot of really cool looking stories, I would still suggest taking time to go through them and making sure that they look good. So here's an example prompt. Read the spec and the epic. Okay, that's phase one. You're gonna read the full spec. If it's long, summarize each section as you go. Identify the major deliverables or stages. Phase two, propose ticket boundaries. Walk the spec in identity PR size work units along its natural seams. Look for signs that a proposed ticket is too big if it spans multiple subsystems or is too small. reveal change. All right. And here's phase 3. Then we can have a draft to full ticket. It could ask the user, hey, do these tickets descriptions look good? Reply, create to push them to Jira or paste edits in line. Phase 4 is to bulk edit this. And then phase 5 is link Jira tickets blocked by any. So I've seen teams using skills like this. You can also use this to evolve basically your product PRD to move forward. So teams can use AI to help them write their stories, convert them in their product vision, a product requirements document, or mock-ups, and they convert all that also into an initial collection of stories. All right, that was a whirlwind tour of track 1. We'll revisit track 1 later on at the end when I have a pretty important cautionary tale for us. Now let's look at the boundary spanning and project management stuff. So we're finding the backlog. So here we have AI doing a first pass on finding issues and possible fixes for stories. So you can have AI, for instance, take a ticket and try and implement it. You can have AI actually look to see if this ticket is ready for someone to develop. And here is an example prompt. Access Jira. Okay, so here it is. Ticket refinement. Verify required fields are present and non-empty. So it should have a summary, description, acceptance criteria. If it doesn't have any of these things, the ticket is not ready. So in this case, a team is looking at all their tickets and asking, are any of them ready to be moved forward into active development, to be moved forward into track 2? And they're using this prompt whenever they want, maybe once a morning or once a week, just to kind of do the backlog grooming that we used to do before by hand. And so it should have these fields in it. It should have a summary and a description and acceptance criteria. And we're hinting at Claude what kinds of things we want in these things. For instance, the description should cover why and what. If it's missing those things, it's not ready. Or it should have acceptance criteria. And those acceptance criteria need to have observable outcomes. Okay, now let's look at stand-ups. So stand-up meetings are quick, short status meetings. And we can use AI to actually generate stand-up notes. So for instance, hey AI, go scan Jira, go scan GitHub, go scan Slack, and then write up what I did yesterday. So here could be an example prompt for this. So I want to create basically a markdown file that has these concepts, a yesterday, a today, and any blockers. And I want to post that in my team Slack. And I just want AI, you look at the things I did yesterday. Look at Notion, look at my to-do activities, look at GitHub activities, look at Slack activities, and write up a draft thing for me and post that into Slack. So a lot of teams have been switching from stand-ups to sync. Stand-ups are status meetings that have this very familiar Agile format. We talked about yesterday, today, and blockers. And these are, in essence, a status meeting. And teams are just shifting some of this into Slack. So if you're a manager and you want to know what everyone did yesterday, you just go to Slack and see what it is. And then we're using our precious synchronous time to talk about important conversations. What was decided yesterday that we want to talk about as a team? What are things that we want to resolve? What are the blockers? Let's have those conversations. And I saw a team experimenting with using AI to update their PRD. So here's the example prompt for that. Hey, look at the conversations from yesterday on Slack about the project. If there are any decisions that were made, see if the PRD needs to be updated. Propose new changes for me to review. All right, so those are the boundary spanning and project management practices and how AI can fit into those. So if we look at our agenda, we've done the overview, track 1, and now we're going to go to track 2. How do we build all this stuff? Now, there's been a lot of work and people have been talking about how to use Claude to write code. It's not a novel idea where we're at in 2026. So yes, for the astute people, there is a typo in the slide title. It's spelled crayons incorrectly. That's how the author spelled it when they published the image. And much of the current discussion is how do we write clean code? How do we get Claude to do that? And it's getting better every day. One thing I think we can do better at is continuous refactor. So as a reminder, our code can atrophy and it's not always representing what we're currently thinking about as software developers. So you can have the agent refactor the code as you're going along. And before I would say, this is one of my quotes, every story is an opportunity to refactor. And now I would say every prompt is an opportunity to refactor. Test-driven development is another fun place where people are experimenting with AI and letting AI write the test, then write the code, and then we review those changes. All right, so here's an example prompt. Implement the first test in its own commit, and then verify that the test fails for the expected reasons. Not all tests are created equal, and just because this test is red doesn't mean it's testing the right thing. Once we're done with that, we can also have AI do a lot of testing and wear different kind of tester hats. Look at automation testing, or doing pen testing, or security testing, having it test very different combinations of things, or do mutation testing. A lot of fun things we would not have done before manually just because we didn't have enough time. AI can do it for us now. And then we have fast tests and fast builds. So for example, hey, for the last build of the product, examine the slowest test and propose a way to speed it up. Let's make our test speed faster. Some people are using AI to do pair programming. Go for it. If that's working, I love it. And then we have this practice called stop on red builds. When the build is broken, we should stop, not be pushing in more code. And we can ask AI actually to do automatically review and build failures and propose new fixes. So here's this prompt. Check this out. Hey AI, your job is the following. You are checking out a deployment failure. Figure out why the deployment failed, then post a short, scannable thread reply so the on-call engineer understands what broke and what to do next without having to dig into themselves. You investigate and report. Never change anything. Go cheap to expensive. As soon as you have enough information, go explain the failure. And we prefer things like a hedge bet, like high confidence. I think something is true, is more meaningful than confidently asserting the wrong answer. And here's an example output. I've seen this, and it was actually spot on. Root cause with high confidence. The deploy couldn't sync the external secrets. 2 new keys don't exist in the staging secret store, X and Y. Aha! PR number 235 added these secret references. The values were never provisioned in staging. Next step, create secrets in staging bucket, and then redeploy. Not transient rerunning this again and again will fail over and over again. So that's great. Perfect. As an on-call engineer, I love this. I can come in, I can assert, yes, this looks like a reasonable hypothesis on what went wrong, and I confirm this will be a fix. Now notice with vibe coding, if we just ship this, it's then going to fail in our next environment and then eventually into production. So as a human, I can say, I need to fix all these environments at the same time. AI didn't catch that. And then AI is very good at code reviews, and you can assign it different roles. You can say, hey, I want 5 reviewers to look at this code, and Cloud will have one of them be a performance tester or security tester to look at, expert, to see what's going on. All right, so we've kind of went through track 2 here, the coding and delivery tracks, looked at how AI can help with each of these different phases. So altogether, this is track 1, track 2, and this is what makes up sustainable dual track development. All right, so in our presentation, I've gone through the overview, track 1, track 2, and now I'm going through some cautions. Caution number 1, let's get ready for this. All right, when we learn something new, we tend to take what we already know and apply it and want to know how it maps to the new thing. Now, that can be problematic. Sometimes there isn't a mapping. Like we know something in our source domain that doesn't map to the target domain, or it might map to 2 things, or not at all. So if we're learning a foreign language, knowing one language might be helpful, but it can also interfere with learning that target language. And we saw this with our switch from waterfall to Agile. So I remember this transition. Agile isn't an improved waterfall experience, it's something completely different. Yet we kept borrowing terms and concepts from waterfall to map into Agile. So for instance, you might remember we're talking about requirements. We still use this word today, but requirements is a waterfall term. That means this thing has to be in the product. Whereas in Agile, we're always constantly negotiating what the scope is. We're always trying to figure out what is at the top of the backlog. We're ruthlessly prioritizing it. We don't really have requirements. We might call them that, but it's a legacy. It's a carryover term from waterfall. In Agile, we talk about features. What's the feature we need to build next? Is this feature adding value? And so we run the same risk here with transition AI. Maybe waterfall and Agile are not the right ways to be thinking about how do we move forward into the next season of software development. It can get in our way. Caution number 2. All right, we're going to go back to track 1. This one's kind of a little nerdy, but bear with me. It's kind of interesting. So we go back to sense making and design thinking. Look at those labels at those circles. So this is coming from research from my co-author, Paul Ralph. And he studied designers, a lot of product designers, and noticed something that was very interesting about them. First is there's activities that we do called sense making, like when we interview, make an interview guide or interview a stakeholder, or we write notes in an interview or organize these notes. We're trying to understand the current state of affairs. And sometimes this is called problematizing or problem framing or problem focused thinking, but the correct scientific term is sense making, literally making sense of things. And there's another set of activities, in contrast, when we do brainstorming features or draw mock-ups or write up user stories. We're focused on generating and elaborating a product concept. This is called solutionizing or designing or solution-focused thinking. But the correct scientific term is design thinking. Design thinking is a special kind of cognition that isn't reducible to planning, problem-solving, decision-making, or creativity. During design thinking, you're understanding the problem context and your fledgling product concept co-evolved, right? So these two things, these two salmon-colored items, are co-evolving together. As we do sense-making, it affects our project context. And as we're doing design thinking, it's affecting both the project context and fledgling concept. And we're routinely switching between these activities, going back and forth between sense making and design thinking. Sense making is updating our project context, and design thinking is updating both these items. Note, there's no double diamond here. There's not a concrete divergence step followed by a concrete convergence step. These things are indeed co-evolving over time. And if you just rearrange this, it looks like this here, right? That the design thinking activity is causing us to have a co-evolution of it. Now, is this really happening when we do AI? Now, there might be a prompt and there might be some back and forth with Claude, but I've been noticing we're sort of shortchanging this process. We're not doing as much co-evolution of these concepts as we used to do when we went through all of the track one activities. So this might be a weakness of our AI future. Are we doing enough co-evolution would be something I would want to challenge you in your next AI vibe-coded project. All right, so I covered up overview, track 1, track 2, and the cautions, and now we're into the wrap-up phase of this talk. Pitfalls and lessons learned. So we can have over-reliance on AI. This happens when teams stop thinking about AI critically. We have quality traps, AI-generated code that looks right but isn't. AI continues to do what I told it not to do, and team resistance and how to address it. So my challenge for us is on Monday, or tomorrow, when we get back to our teams, is establish team agreements about how and when AI tools are used, pick one ceremony, maybe refinement, and experiment with AI for one sprint, and then retro-reflect on what's working and what isn't, and maybe add AI tool usage as a retro topic. If you've enjoyed this talk, I've written a book about sustainable dual-track development, and I like to offer up a free chapter to everyone here. This is called Towards Organizational Justice. Now, I know DEI is not politically savvy right now, but my co-author and I, who are different sides of politics, thought it was really important to talk about inclusion and making environments where people can belong, accelerate, and grow, and have a very diverse team set. And this is an important chapter in our Agile Method book. We wanted to make sure everyone who wanted it could have it. And there's some challenging things in here. We look at each part of what it means to be an employee and how do we break up power structures and how do we fix the promotion process. It's all in here. We have a lot of strong opinions. So I would hope you would check out this free chapter, download it, give it to a friend. And that's it. AI augmented sprints. Agile isn't dead. We'll see if we end up in a mode where humans are no longer writing code. But until then, as long as I'm on call, I want to see what the Claude is generating for us and having a say in what kind of code it's writing and making sure it's clean. So at this point, thank you, and are there any questions?